Well, many of you might know I've talked about in the past that I'm a history buff, and I like reading about history and knowing about history. So I don't know how many of you know on Palm Sundays, April 9th, 1865, General Robert E. Grant surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant, the general of the Union Army at the village of I knew I was going to mess this one, Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. This surrender ended the bloodiest war ever fought on America's soil. State against state, brother against brother. It was a conflict that literally tore our nation apart. 5 days later, on Good Friday, April 14th, 1865, America's most reverend president, Abraham Lincoln, was shot and wounded by John Wilkes Booth in the Ford Theater. It was Lincoln who had wrote the Emancipation Proclamation that ended slavery in the states forever. It was Lincoln who wrote and gave the Gettysburg Address. Lincoln hated war, but he was drawn into this one because he believed it was the way to serve the nation. On Palm Sunday, the war ended triumphantly. On Good Friday, Emperor Abraham Lincoln became the first United States president to be assassinated tragically. This bit of U.S. history is reminiscent of Easter. On April 9th, 1865, the U.S. found itself at peace for the first time in over 5 years. Our nation could now start to heal from 5 years of brutal warfare, where over 500,000 Americans had died. Peace had arrived on Palm Sunday. This peace would only last 5 days, and on Good Friday, Lincoln was assassinated. From joy to peace to sorrow and death. This was Jerusalem was experiencing on this first Palm Sunday. The Messiah had returned to Jerusalem. Their expectations that Jesus was to bring peace and joy to them. But much like that Good Friday in 1865, their hopes for peace would be shattered. Their Messiah, the one who they had hoped would bring peace to Jerusalem, was hanging on a cross to die. Let's stop and take a closer look at our text that we read this morning. Who's Mark writing this gospel to? What is Mark trying to do with his gospel? To demonstrate to the Israel that Jesus fulfilled the prophecies from the Old Testament? In the passage from Mark, we read Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a colt. Mark used this passage to fulfill Zechariah 9:9, which states, Jesus, rejoicing greatly, daughter Zion, shout, daughter Jerusalem, see your king coming to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a colt the foal of a donkey. See, Mark wants to let his audience know that Jesus is fulfilling this prophecy. We read that Jesus sent two of his disciples into the village to find the colt. Jesus knew that the colt would be there and to tell the people that the Lord needed it. So this kind of was brought up in pub theology on Thursday. Do you think Jesus set this up, or do you think Jesus knew this was going to happen because he was fully God and fully human? We don't really know, but it is an interesting question to pose. So why do you think the disciples placed their cloaks or their coats, their outer garments on the colt? And that why did the people that were there, the crowd there, why did they put their cloaks or coats or whatever on the road? Well, throwing garments symbolized their submission to the king, the new king that was Jesus, that was riding in a colt. They were saying they were going to submit to him. The Psalms that symbolized the Jewish nationalism and victory, which is interesting because if you read in the Mark's passage, it doesn't actually say palms. The only gospel that actually mentions palms is John's gospel, which we talked about that on pub theology as well. So here's Jesus. He's entering Jerusalem. It's Passover. This is like the Super Bowl for the Jewish faith, the Passover week. So Jerusalem would have been a hustling and a bustling city. Probably they're estimated there'd be over 250,000 people. Now we think today 250,000 people is not that many people. Back then, that was a lot of people to be gathering in one spot. People would have been all over, sleeping probably in the streets. Probably would have been no place at the inn. And here, Jesus is entering into this big celebration. Many people would have traveled from all over the world to be there at Passover. During the Jewish festivals, this is one of the festivals. If you were a Jewish or a follower of the Jewish faith, you had to go to Jerusalem for this. So the streets were crowded. There was an excitement in the air. And in this excitement 2,000 years ago, Jesus entered into Jerusalem, being treated as royalty. Their Messiah, the King, had entered into the city, into the city of Jerusalem. Do you think that they thought Jesus was a high priest? Was he a Pharisee? We don't know really what they thought. But what do you think Herod thought? What did you think the Romans were thinking? Here's this guy riding in on a colt. They're throwing their cloaks down for him. And imagining Herod, the Romans, and all those in power probably were not too happy that this guy Jesus was entering into Jerusalem. So when Jesus entered in the city was asking, who is this? So I'm going to ask you today, who do you think Jesus is today to you? Is Jesus a conquering king? Is he a prophet? Or is he a priest? Is he the homeless man on the corner of the street? Is he an orphan? Is he one of the refugees that is fleeing a war-torn country? Or perhaps Jesus is on our Zoom call today. And if he was, would we know it? The crowd in Jerusalem thought they knew who Jesus was. They cheered and welcomed him into their city, but less than a week later, they were chanting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The Jewish leadership would find him guilty, although he committed no crime. The Romans would beat, whip, mock, and humiliate him. He who had no sin would end up on the cross, bearing all of our sins. Is that the Jesus you were expecting on Palm Sunday? Is that the Jesus that you worship every day? After the thousands of years, the world still does not understand or get who really Jesus was. People today still want to crucify him. They still don't want anything to do with him. And it's amazing that he still loves and adores us, that he continues to seek a relationship with each and every one of us, even those who have forsaken him, because he has promised that he will never leave us or forsake us. He is always, always, always by our side. He's there to pick us up when we fall down. And he's also there to give us a high five at our highest moment. But once again, what Jesus do you see entering in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday? This is an important question for us to ask ourselves. But this is a question that I can't answer for you. It's a question you have to answer for yourself. But as we prepare to welcome him in, let us never forget that the love that he has shown to us. Let us prepare our hearts, our minds, and our souls for this journey that we're about to enter in on this great Holy Week. Let us never forget the cost. It cost Jesus to set us free from our sins. And unlike President Lincoln, who died, Jesus died but was resurrected on Easter Sunday. Jesus truly sets us free now and forever. Shalom and amen, and happy Palm Sunday.